how do you determine legitimacy, relevance, authenticity?
Yeah. Well, history of technology is a very interesting...
And I'm going to ask that question several times, but this time it's related to the bibliography work.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate question. History of technology is a very interesting field this way because unlike, say, well, I won't pick another field because I'm sure we'll think of exceptions, but unlike many other fields in history, much of the work that's done in history of technology is done by people who are not historians, okay? They're either
for sure.
Experts, in the engineering of something or the specific technologies. There's a huge buff literature. If you look at the history of railroads and who writes the history of railroads, who writes the history of automobiles, journalists write quite a bit. So there's the question of filtering what should go into a scholarly bibliography is quite difficult and challenging. What we did for that bibliography, for the most part, is I had a team of about half a dozen people who were all in the field who were specialists in particular areas of technology, and they would comb those areas of the literature. I would get all of that. I would have some areas like history of computing that I would be responsible for, and then I would I would sift through that, trying to put together the most comprehensive view of what was going on in the field, because that's really what it was about more than anything else. There isn't much of a reviewing function that goes along with that. I mean, I can think of a few examples where I would have passed judgment on a work on the basis of its quality as to whether it should be included in the bibliography or not. And the reason for that is that bad books sometimes contribute to a field. I mean, it might be a bad book. Bad can mean very many different things, but a bad book might stimulate work by other people. It might be the only book on a field or the first book on a field that opens up research into something, even though it may be flawed. It may encourage other people to do a better job or to go into this field that nobody has written about before. It may have information in it, even though the narrative may not be terribly convincing in an analytical sense. There may be a lot of information in it. So it was really more about getting a sense of what's going on in the field, putting together as much information as possible about the scope of publishing in a field, more than it was about judging the works that went into the bibliography.
Thanks, Henry. I'd encourage the audience to think about a very profound statement. Are bad books good or stimulating, let's say, further books on the same topic that are perhaps more accurate?